Okay, so let's take a look at recognizing assumptions. Now this you will definitely get throughout your decision making section, and it is a type of question which is slightly different to the rest. Now the first tip is that don't use your own knowledge for this at all. I did that first time round, don't do that. Second time round I realized you're not meant to use your own knowledge, just stick to the information given in the question. Now basically this involves a question and a series of statements which you have to identify the strongest or the weakest argument. Usually the strongest. Now make sure, now this is I've lost for words, this is the most important tip. That's it. So make sure you have all parts of the question in the argument, and this is the most important point, and the strongest argument addresses all parts of the information. Now let's take a look at an example, and literally if you've got this point in your head, tackling these sort of questions becomes a whole lot easier. And trust me, these are easy marks. If you understand this point here, I think you could possibly get 100% on all of these questions. So let's take a look. Doctors should be able to choose which patients are under their care. So this is a statement. Which of the following is the strongest argument which supports or follows this statement here? So let's go through them one by one. Now what I first do is I go through each one by one, and I recognize any arguments which are a bit extreme, do not match, or don't make sense in accordance to what has been said here. So let's take a look at question 1. So yes, doctors give better care if they have a good rapport with their patients. Now this one is a relatively good argument. It's showing that number one, that doctors give better care. So here the statement is talking about their care, it's talking about doctors, and having a good rapport with their patients. It's not really explicitly mentioned in here, but I guess it's 50-50, not so sure, but it's a relatively still a good argument which supports this statement. So I'm going to consider this for now. Then I look at the second one. Yes, doctors can choose patients that align most with their areas of interest. Now the fact that it says areas of interest here, it's mentioning about doctors should be able to choose which patients are under their care, rather than doctors choose patients that align with their areas of interest. That's got nothing to do with the statement said above. So here I wouldn't really consider that. So let's look at C. So no, some more complicated patients may end up with no doctors choosing to take on their cases. So it's talking about doctors choosing, which is what it says here, the ability to choose. And so some more complicated patients may end up with no doctors choosing to take on their cases. Now, if there are patients without doctors, then that could possibly compromise their level of care, which is not really explicitly mentioning the word care in this sentence, but it is referring to the idea of lack of care. So I would consider that. So currently right now I'm considering A and C. Now the last one, no, doctors may become de-skilled if they choose only a small subset of patients. Here it's talking about de-skilled and not really talking about the level of care for patients, so I wouldn't really choose this either. Now it's now between A and C. Now both mention, well, A mentions care explicitly, C doesn't mention it explicitly, but it still refers to the idea of care. So let's read the statement once again. So doctors should be able to choose which patients are under their care. Let's go back to A. Yes, doctors give better care if they have a good rapport with their patients. Now, it's not really talking about the idea or the ability to choose. So here it's the doctors should be able to choose. Here it's not mentioning any idea or anything about doctors having the ability to choose. Whereas C, it mentions No, some more complicated patients may end up with no doctors choosing. So it's mentioning the idea of the ability to choose, and yet it might not be explicitly mentioning the word care, but the fact that certain patients don't have doctors will compromise the level of care. So the strongest argument will be this one, yet I was very close to choosing A. So the answer is here is C. So you really want to look deeply and see, does it mention all parts of the statement? So the ability to choose and then care. So those were the two main things that needed to be mentioned in the argument. Maybe sometimes it's harder because it's not explicitly mentioned, but you really do have to think deeply about this. Now, with practice, you'll be able to identify this a lot more, and it should become a lot more easier.